Everybody saying that they like my style. Wanna know how I do it? I smile. While you were out there saying hey, hi, hello, I was getting dressed up in shades of yellow.
Hello, Emma.
Hi, Leah. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, a bit tired, not going to lie. 10 minutes late to the podcast this morning, so we're going.
And hello, everybody else.
Shall we introduce ourselves? Why don't you introduce us this week?
Okay. I'm Leah Spicer-Pownall, and I'm the marketing manager of Miss Bush, and this is...
The Lovely Job podcast.
No, this is Emma Marshall.
Oh. I thought everybody... I told
this
you,
is Emma
I'm
Marshall.
literally...
She's the marketing... No, she's the MD of Miss Bush. This is the Lovely Job podcast.
Yeah, I don't really sound it this morning, do I? I feel like if someone is all over something, it wouldn't be me this morning. I do feel a bit tired.
Yeah, and I just had to tell Emma to adjust her bush necklace because it just said bus.
Bus,
so
even.
Bus.
Yeah. This is, yes, the different accents and the different vowel sounds between a Leicestershire girl and a Surrey girl, basically. Bus.
Yes, it was very funny because when we went to stay with Emma in the summer, my son Felix just spent the whole time taking the mickey out of Emma's accent. It was really funny.
Which is funny because I actually don't have one, and we all know that. I speak the Queen's English, so that doesn't mean I have an accent.
That's very true.
Okay.
Okay. So, how's your weekend been?
My weekend, I worked a very long day on Saturday. Rosie had me at a 9 o'clock appointment. So basically, by the time that I'd got up and driven to work and then got home again, I'd spent sort of like pretty much 14 hours out of the house on Saturday. So it was one of those Saturday evenings of, I was supposed to go and see the Dub Pistols at the Wedgwood Rooms. I couldn't be bothered. I was literally like, I'm not standing up watching a gig, particularly an energetic one. So it was definitely, I'm a Celebrity, Drag Race. That was it, bed. So yeah, it was a bit of a very dull weekend, basically. Although I did... yesterday, go and see, I went to the sea because I wanted to see what Storm Bert was like at the sea.
Ooh, that sounds dramatic.
It was very dramatic.
Crashing waves.
Exactly that, yeah. And forgot to take my phone, otherwise I could just have been like everyone else. You know, when like people are like doing something really stupidly dangerous with their iPhone just before they're swept out to sea. And I was like, oh, I didn't bring my phone. I was like, good, because that you'd have been tempted to get a really dangerous like shot of like crashing waves.
Yeah, Emma wins the Darwin Award. Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, well, shall we just go straight in with our questions this week? Because we've had lots, haven't we?
Yes. Well, we've still got one from last week, haven't we, that we didn't get round to answering as well?
Yes. So shall we start with that one? So it was how to buy second-hand or sample dresses.
Yes. Well, I think me and all other bridal retailers have got some skin in the game on this at the moment because everyone is using Black Friday as a marketing hook. Not to discount any brand new dresses, but to highlight, market, advertise, sample sales. So basically, for anybody that doesn't know what a sample sale is, that's the dresses that you try on in the shop on a normal appointment. So these are used as demonstrators, test models, that kind of thing. So it is one of the most horrific things about owning a bridal retail business is that effectively you have to spend a fortune every year on sample dresses, and they depreciate the minute they hit the shop floor, and you have hope that you've got your buying right. And if you take lots of repeat orders off one dress, that's great because that's what you want it to do. It's basically an investment. It's your stake. But what you need to be able to do is keep moving your stake or your money out. I've I've talked to some very new retailers on occasions, and they're like, there's all my profit sitting there. And it's like, you should never think of this as your profit. I mean, it's quite nice to liquidate it, but it is a constant stake that you've got in play the whole time. And the money you make for a bridal shop that keeps you in business and pays the wages and pays the mortgage is the profit that you make on repeat orders. So we all are very, very keen on selling our sample dresses. So it basically means that we're getting our steak out of the it sounds like I'm talking about meat, but you know what I mean. Like you're actually getting your money out of those dresses to reinvest into some new dresses. So seasonally, obviously designs change slightly, or you can have situations where you have a dress that's so popular that everyone's worn it that people then want a different variation of it. So sample sales is the time when bridal retailers want to sell the demonstrator dresses that have been tried on in the shop. I wiggled my laptop there. So everyone's used Black Friday as a kind of hook for this. So I could almost guarantee that any given time at any year, a bridal retailer will have samples to sell, whether they're advertising it strongly or not. So we have a outlet business. So this I kind of probably had been in a sort of like arm lock, Chinese burn, headlock, whatever you name it, torture generally. But I think what would be a really good idea, Ben, is if you had our sample sale dresses in your shop in Basingstoke. So as everyone may or may not know, Ben and Adrian divide their time three ways between working for Miss Bush, working in our startup label Nautier, and also within the fittings and alteration business, which is Nautier Shallow. And basically, they have a retail space there. So I have co-opted their retail space to be a Miss Bush sample shop. So year round, you can make appointments there to buy our sample dresses, and those a lot of those are Jesus Pero, but they're reflective of all the designers that we've stocked or have stocked previously. So Anna Cora, there are Sophia Voilard dresses, there are Suzanne Neville dresses there. So that's year round. So basically, and other people have got sample outlet rails, rooms, generally a store cupboard. So if you speak to any bridal retailer at any point, they will be able to sell you a sample dress. My advice for buying a sample dress basically is to really be super clear about what you want, super clear about the size that you are, and bearing in mind, I think we've discussed bridal shop sizing before, but at least basically size two sizes down for a bridal shop. So if you buy a high street 12, you probably would scarily wanting to be looking at 14, 16 samples. No, but it doesn't mean anything, but it's just worth putting that parameter in, because I think if I look at Suzanne Neville's size chart, her measurements for a size 12 dress measure the same as a Rixo size 8. So I know that's two sizes adrift, and it seems bonkers, but that's just the way it is. So it doesn't define you, but and alterations are possible. So that's what I would say. Sample sales are good. There are also like a sort of chain of sample shops called Reloved. So that's a franchise system. So those Reloved shops will buy pieces from, they're a bit TK Maxx. So they will buy pieces from shops that have discontinued, brands, designers, labels. They also buy from big manufacturers who over-order, just like further evidence that some parts of our industry is not as green or as eco as they like to think they are. So they've got a permanent thing. But that is a bit TK Maxx-ish, because basically you've got to basically love a rummage, because there's going to be some fillers on the shelf, if I could be so rude. So you will get a bargain, but you probably won't get premium brands discounted. So if you want a premium brand discounted, then you need to go to a stockist of a premium brand. So if you wanted a Suzanne Neville dress from us for £1,000, get to the outlet. Ditto Jesus Pero. So that's one of those things I think would be really good.
Yeah. I think as well, though, a sample sale is a great chance to get something that's a bit more cool, a bit more interesting, because that's usually you'll order something that's like kind of your wild card that you're not quite sure, you know, if it's going to sell in the shop, but you love it anyway. And they're the kind of things that can end up in sample sales as well. So if you want something a bit more kind of out there, that's kind of where you'll find it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, out there pieces, or when you just, I hate to say it, it's the end of a relationship pieces as well. If you've suddenly
Mm,
decided that a brand's not working for you, even though it's perfectly lovely, um, but it's just not happening for you, then that's also a good thing to look at as well. I've had those kind of, I think we've probably found that with sort of Anna Cara, actually, as much as I loved their dresses and they were really soft and pretty. The
mm,
soft and pretty was only of marginal interest to some of our clients. I mean, the girls that bought them looked absolutely incredible, but
mm,
you have to earn your spot on our rails. You have to earn your place. Basically, it's very
mm.
valuable rail space. So yeah, so that ends of really.
But blogging the Anacara brides, they were mostly kind of destination weddings. So, you know, it'd be brides that get married in Spain and places like that because they were a lot lighter and a lot floatier. So they were better for that kind of wedding.
Yeah, and it's just, yeah, and the team were lovely there, and I have no qualms with them, but we have to be a little bit brutal and businessy on occasion. So yeah, so that's what you're going to look for there. And also I would check sizing before you look at sample sales as well for that reason, because
Mm,
sometimes if you've bought cool editorial pieces, you'll tend to buy them in a size that you know will be will go on your regular roster of models, and so that tends to be quite small as well. But yes, so yeah, sample sales
okay.
everywhere at the moment. Leah undoubtedly will put a link to our outlet in the show notes for this, should you be interested.
Yes. If you head to our Instagram, though, there is the post on the Instagram at the moment because I've posted that it's always Black Friday at the outlet.
I see what you did there. Very clever.
Yep.
Um, and then I guess the other thing is pre-loved or once worn dresses. So I generally encounter lots more people wanting to sell their dress than wanting to buy a pre-loved dress. I mean, the thing is with pre-loved dresses is um, the advice that I would have if I was a bride, if you wanted to sell your pre-loved dress, is take it off your back the minute you're finished with it, get it cleaned and sell it then, while you can then effectively ride on the coattails of all the marketing that everyone else is doing while it is live and a
Mm,
current dress in shops. And there are particular brands, I think probably Neville, and then also some of the Australian brands, where you will have a cult of followers on a particular style.
mhm,
That's weirdly not how we sell so much in Miss Bush. We tend to be collaborative, creative partnerships with our brides. So quite often there's tweaks and changes and redesigns. But if you want a sort of a Suzanne Neville Amber, for example, and you've had it as
mhm,
exactly as the sample, there should be plenty of them around. Now, the downside potentially about once worn or pre-loved dresses is they will have been altered very specifically for someone. So if you are 5'10", it might be hard to find one that's long enough. If you find a dress you love, but that bride was like different size top and bottom, or they had couture or something like that, then that is quite tricky. Also, you can quite often find that people have spent a lot of money on this dress, so they're holding out for more money than you want to pay. So, like generally speaking, if you had a £4,000 dress, I would expect a pre-love to be 2,000. But if it's marked, altered, and like it's got some signs of wear and tear, then realistically, if that was in our sample sale, we'd probably put it down to 1,000. And the problem can sometimes be that the bride that's still a little bit sentimental about the dress or needs to recover some money from it may not be prepared to negotiate. There's a couple of really big places where you can buy pre-loved dresses. One of them is Still White. And again, I would probably recommend if you could look for UK based sellers, because otherwise you have still got that problem with import duty. if you get something from outside the EU, from the States or something like that. So and then the other thing that you can look for is dress agencies. Now I think these are less common though now, but I still think that Gillian Million, who's based in Teddington, runs a dress agency, so you could take a dress to her and she would sell it for you. They take a fairly chunky commission, but my advice is always just not to look at that. Just don't look at it, because it's hard work selling wedding dresses. You're going to have to be paying VAT on it as a professional. You've got overheads, you've got staff wages to pay. So I think you just don't look at what they're making. Just look at what your net gain is on getting the money back. But I think, as I say, or the other thing, which is really weird. So in the charity shops down here in Southsea, there is really cheap wedding dresses because they're so ancient. Now, I would rather possibly play with one of those, like a literal meringue, and have some fun with it. But the thing is, you could easily spend like maybe £750, £1,000 on the like upcycling, fitting, whatever. So that would be a very green way of going about it. When one of the lockdowns happened, where I used to live in Send, I lived pretty much opposite a charity shop, and they had got a 1990s wedding dress in the window that I recognised. It was called Snow Queen by Lilla Lace, and it was one of our bestsellers in the 90s. But the problem is they were shut for lockdown. So by the time they reopened, I couldn't get my hands on it. But it was one of those classic silk GP things. So I would say that that would be a real cool girl way of doing it, is to really upcycle
a 90s wedding dress.
But you'll be looking at something quite unfashionable on the front, and you need to be able to see the vision. Also, the other thing I've noticed is that I have sold some pieces on my own Vinted account. So I think my Vinted account name is Emma at Miss Bush, but that is I just sold a really cool Anacara scrunchie that they gave me as a gift. I had it listed. It's in silk with the Anacara label on it. So I didn't really know how to list it. So I listed it £2.50, and somebody bought it for £1.80, and they gave me a really, really brilliant review because it's the best bridal scrunchie that they'd found. And I was like, yeah, £1.80. I feel a bit bad selling it, but the thing is, I refuse to have clutter now. Well, I try to refuse to have clutter. So yeah, that's what I would.
You're very good at getting rid of things on your Vinted.
Yeah. So yeah. And it also, like, people can find things that I've worn for like half an hour when I've done a content shoot, and then there it is.
Yeah, definitely check out Emma's Vinted if you want some really cool kind of fashion bargains.
And our ex-display trying-on shoes, that's the other thing that goes on there quite a lot. So all those Zara heels and things, I tend to sell those off quite quickly as well.
Yeah, and things from shoots as well. You're always buying bits for shoots, aren't you? And getting rid of them.
Yeah, my daughter would say I should return them. I was like, no, it's immoral. So I'm like,
it's been worn.
There's a whole generation of people that will buy stuff from ASOS and then send it back after they've worn it. And I'm like, what about the tags? It's like, well, you pin them away. It's like, no, you don't.
Yeah. Yeah, but then you buy something, don't you? And then it comes and it smells like perfume. You're like, this has been worn. I'm sure this has been worn before.
Yeah. No, I can't do that. As a one retailer to another, I can't do it. So yes, I invest.
Okay, right. I think we've covered that question quite
thoroughly, as normal, yeah.
Okay, so what next? So we've had some more questions. So you've come to the conclusion that asking a question on a Sunday night is the perfect time for people to send you their worries, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a brilliant time. Like, the first time I did it was a sort of sensible weekday, like during work hours, like absolute tumbleweed and kind of clocks chiming. No one replied at all. Also, I do think I've been a bit rubbish on stories. I used to put a lot more of my life on there and make it a lot more accessible. And I think one just gets a bit bored of that after a while, don't you? We did it so much through lockdowns and pandemics and things, and all sorts of stuff.
I do think since you've moved to Southsea, it's very like you've got a good balance of home and work, haven't you? So it's a lot more separate.
Better, she says on a Monday morning recording a podcast. Yeah, got my day off.
Okay, so this is a really, really good question that we had, which is, how do you navigate your mum wanting you to go for a dress that you don't want, especially if she's contributing financially towards it?
It is interesting, that, isn't it?
Tricky.
I think I could answer this with multiple hats on here. So I'm going to be answering it first from, I am more or less the same age as a lot of mums of the brides now. I mean, our mum bride age is probably goes from at the youngest maybe 50 to maybe 70. That's so at sort of 58, I'm sitting quite in the middle of that demographic. So if I was going with my daughter to choose a wedding dress, my actual daughter, not a hypothetical one here, I don't know that I would have much sway over the style that she chose. I would want to input on it, and I would want to add some creativity. But my daughter's choices are very bold, very individual, very her. So I think that I would be, but I think probably, that is the same as mine as well. So I'd probably be like more, should we put a bra on with that? Because like all girls 30 and under, they don't like wearing bras very much. So that would be probably my only input. So I would be, I know I would not be able to kind of impose a different point of view on that. And so I think that if I had chosen then to spend money or to treat my daughter to a wedding dress, then I don't think that my opinion about what she should wear should be leveraged, or like my cash shouldn't be leveraged for changing somebody's mind. But that would be my point of view. But I also think that would be me wanting to maybe help and wanting to give some money to a situation. And obviously this is my profession. So 30 years of looking at mum and daughter relationships in the shop, I would say that that's probably the way to go with it. Is if you wanted an absolute textbook thing, is your cash does not mean that you have voting rights over this. And I think that this is a lesson we learn as parents quite often, like particularly like if I've had any of my children in crisis or they're between jobs or something and they ask you to borrow some money, you feel like you want to say, but don't buy cigarettes with it. Like, because you're doing something, benevolent. Somehow you have a sort of moral authority about what people spend their money on, do you do? And you're a bit like, you'd rather your children didn't buy cigarettes, but really, to be honest, if you're going to sub them some cash, as long as you know they weren't going to go and buy meth or something, then you'd be all right with it. So,
Although I do that. I do that with Felix. Like with his pocket money, I'd be like, it's not for spending on sweets. You don't spend it all on sweets, okay?
I mean, I think that's a sort of, there's a line there, isn't there? 7-8-year-olds, do you know what I mean? Like teaching them the value of money and potentially not bringing in bad habits of like, over consumption of sugar. But I think it's like that I think it's fine. I think that's okay. But I think that it's a thing as a mum, if you go in, but I think it would be a very different situation if, it depends how close you are. And I think that some people also want to give their mum that respect, that if she's paying, they want her to like their choice and respect the choice. And that's where we get into a sticky wicket there, because without having both of the mother and the daughter on a psychiatrist couch, we can only guess at the relationship until that point. But I think it's also, effectively getting married, and particularly if you're deciding to get married in a church, whatever, of whatever faith, a place of worship of whatever faith, and you've brought your mum wedding dress shopping with you, that really does speak of traditional values and shared values, both in faith, shared values in family. So I'm going to think that it's likely that you will want to reach a kind of a shared aesthetic choice and a shared traditional choice on your dress. So in which case, although mum is buying under those circumstances, or parents are buying under those circumstances, I think there's generally quite a lot of respect all the way round. The conversations I have quite often with people about dresses that are too low. I mean, we're not very good at offering a wide choice of deep V dresses in our shop, because I hear these conversations the whole time. People's mums and grandmothers don't want their daughters to have their boobs out at their wedding, and our brides are very happy either to agree to that or absolutely believe that themselves. So you have a sort of, it's not a sort of democratic thing where we all vote for the best possible outcome, but somebody really didn't like it. It generally is quite a good consensus that you've come to. So that can be a thing. I have on some occasions seen some brides behave like madams, like spoiled madams, that when their mum hands over the card, they don't even say thank you. And I'm like, wow, that's been, I feel like in those circumstances, potentially the mum has made a rod for her own back on that. If you're gonna, if you haven't put that many boundaries around your daughter and spending in the past, this is not gonna change now. So I've seen that happen on occasions. But I've also seen some slightly evil mum behaviours, which I don't want to cast that mum as evil, because we've all come from very different parenting backgrounds ourselves. So a mum's commentary on their daughter's figure, which I find absolutely unnecessary. I've seen mums who are slim, they have got bigger daughters, and it's not that they verbally fat shame, they kind of non-verbally fat shame, which is just as readable and just as audible, and you can feel it. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, and then you think you've also got the right, so it is quite tricky, because the mum is basically non-verbally giving an opinion, and they will use words like, this one's more flattering, meaning you don't look as fat in that one. Which is really difficult to hear and witness sometimes. So, and I don't like all of these things. This will come from that person's upbringing. Do you know, it's not coming from a place necessarily of intended harm, but it is coming from a place where that narrative in the family has always been that. And I think it's difficult to listen to and look at. But, my mum did that to me. So, when I started going out with Marshy all those years ago, I was just a child of 40, and I've been trying to give up smoking for years. And eventually, I think not because of Marshy, but with support of someone, I think it's quite easier to break an addictive thing. And so I stopped smoking and I put on 2 stone pretty much straight away. And my mum said to me, Marshy didn't start going out with a fat lass. So the implication being that, you are being judged and you are being prized for your figure. And so sometimes you'll still get that. So you will see mums trying to economically drive something to something they consider to be flattering because of their notions of what female form should look like. So that's quite tricky to watch, because that is really using money. It's slightly weaponizing the money that you're giving someone to buy something. So that I find that quite sad. I will try and be a sort of a peacekeeper down the middle of that relationship. But I would say there is taste differences as well. Definitely, I come across this. Mums who have got a basic glitter fetish and can't wait to put some decoration on the dress, but the bride clearly doesn't want it. Veils is another bone of contention. But I think that most of these things get resolved, because I've sold a dress to a girl on Friday, and she would be what we would call a sort of unicorn in bridal terms. She actually ordered her dress with me on her first visit to any wedding dress shop at all, and I was sort of slightly taking the mick out of her, where it's like, I really want to play cards with you, because she liked to dress. She was like, and when she did it, she was like the body language was all there, and it was it would be impossible for her mum not to see that body language change, and to have an argue for a different dress other than the one she liked. And actually her mum did love the one she had, and her mum did buy her the dress. So also, the other thing I want to say on mums buying dresses as well is, relatively speaking, I mean, I know £2,000 to £4,000 is a lot of money, and if your parents are helping you out with the wedding, generally it's a lot of money. But these are things that we want to do. These are things that we've worked for as parents. These are things that maybe give us joy, as opposed to paying, our parental contribution to your rent at uni, where you don't really get anything for that, and other things like paying your parking fines, Georgia, or other bills, so this is actually like something, as parents, if you're sort of a fairly traditional parent, something you've worked for and saved for, and are really happy to do. And I think, I can see some slight differences in taste, but as I say, generally speaking, that situation, I think the worst parts of that comes from an inherently underlying prickly relationship. And potentially, I think the brides, if they know that's going to happen, maybe take ownership of that and be like, well, actually, do I want my mum to come shopping with me, or do I show her when it's a done deal? Because if you have that battleground of a relationship, it doesn't get any better amplified and witnessed by strangers in that whole bridal arena. So that were my thoughts on that.
Have you ever had a mum say, I'm paying for it, so you can't have that one? You can't have that one.
Not
outright.
Not in so many words, but I don't know. I'm not privy to the conversations, what happens before or after. Do you know what I mean? Like, I've seen people in, and I had a bride had obviously chosen to come here, and she'd put a list of dresses down, and basically the mum was just like, she just looked appalled at all of them. She's like, it's all very plain. And you just think, I think the bride, even if the bride had liked it, it was very clear that mum was not going to support a choice made of any of our dresses. I also had an occasion once where a bride who really loved something with us, absolutely adored it. I think she was not British, so she brought her mother-in-law to be, who arrived in flip-flops with diamante all over. I mean, that's not something I see on the feet of a lot of our mums that much. And again, she was expecting the mother-in-law to have an appropriate mum reaction, but when someone's got like diamante on pretty much everything they wear, they're not going to love anything in our shop. And this bride was also a lot older than the groom, and I could feel waves of judginess and everything coming off this mother-in-law to be. And suffice to say, I didn't see that bride again either, which is a real shame, because what she liked with us really gave her joy. But I think that she was really looking for that approval. So, those are choices that you make both ways on that. So I've never heard anyone say, my money, my choice. But I have no idea what they've said beforehand.
Yeah, but they've meant it. They have meant it in their actions.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've still got quite a few questions, but so Sharon, the hairdresser, Sharon Roberts, has asked for your thoughts on what hairstyles work best with specific necklines of dresses.
Right. Okay, cool. Well, at the moment, it's quite interesting because quite a lot of brides at the moment are hairdo refusenicks. Like, no one wants a hairdo. They're like, I'm just going to have it like this. So there's quite a lot of no hairdo conversations. And so I'm having to do a little bit of education in the shop about, actually, I think if you're going to have this, for example, I've had a couple of occasions recently where people have got family tiaras to use, and I'm like, right, okay, if you're having a family tiara, have you ever seen Kate Middleton or the late Queen or anyone wear a tiara with just a casual downdo? So you haven't. So if you've got a tiara, you need two things. You need a hairdo for two reasons. One, you need to give that some stability and anchorage, and it needs to look really quite formal, but it doesn't have to look terrible. So actually, one of my brides recently, I got a Halo and Co tiara out, and before we put any dress on, almost, I did her hair and put a tiara on, and I'm like, right, we've now got to consider the dresses regardless of
Mm.
neckline with this piece of jewelry that you're definitely wearing. And actually they were like, this is so useful. I was like, isn't it? Yeah. So because it's you can't because otherwise you're not really getting a sense of the drama. And Sharon over the years actually has shown me lots of techniques, so I'm pretty adept at doing an updo. I mean, I would say we've got, particularly at the moment, say like the trends, in broadly speaking, say like puffy sleeves. So for me, for puffy sleeves, I think the hair needs to be controlled down the back, and so it sits between the sleeves so that you don't have
Mm.
hair dangling around the
On
place.
top.
Yeah. So
Mm.
I think, so for puffy sleeves, you either need an updo or half up, half down, or that thing you do when you take the front bits of your hair and you just tie them into a ponytail under the rest of your hair. So you've got sleek,
Mhm.
controlled hair, which I think looks really good. And I think also the same would apply to like a formal high neck dress. I think again it's quite good to not have hair obscuring the neckline and the back neckline. And this is not because this is fashion. This is because you sort of don't want to look like cousin It going down the aisle, particularly if you've got sort of like a high neck, hair here, and maybe even a veil. It's just too much. Like we can't see your
Mm.
face. And basically, the concept of like veils and hairdos and all of those things is one bit, and it's fashion. But the reality is, what we want to do is, when we're invited to a wedding, we want to see the emotion, we want to see the love story, we want to read that in somebody's face. That's what moves us. I mean, yeah, I would be slightly like interested in the shape of the dress and what it looks like, and everyone's like, absolutely gripped to see what the bride's wearing. But everyone else really wants to see the bride saying her vows, and really see that emotional register. And particularly also, the thing that I always remind people of is when you're having your meal at reception and people are talking about you in speeches, and you're laughing or you're crying or whatever, that in fact, this bit from where I'm actually here on the podcast, that is really important, because that's what a lot of people are going to see more than the church. So yeah, I think that hair is really important for that reason. So I think that generally speaking, um hairstyles, I mean, I've always loved those kind of posh, bouncy ponytails with the Jesus Perot sports luxe looking dresses. I think, again, family tiaras need a bit of an updo. I think really consider down with curls and really, really know whether or not your hair's going to look like a mess really quickly after that, because curls drop out. And I've seen people start the day with good hair. By the time they get to the reception, it's like just long, straight hair. So it kind of depends really what you want to do. But I think ornate updos seem to have bitten the dust very much at the moment. So a couple of years ago, everyone was having flower crowns and multiple plaits in their hair, and really quite fussy. But they were supposed to be casual updos, like casual, nothing casual about it. They were just like a sea of plaits and bits and curls. But I would have to say that your hairdresser choice, if you're going for natural down and with a curl, almost needs to be more elevated, because I can do a half decent updo, but there's nowhere to hide in a down do. That's got to be, your hair is going to be in peak condition. You need to be thinking about that now. It's got to be like beautifully done. The products that go on it have got to be there, but weightless and unnoticeable, because you've got to keep those curls there. You're going to need a gloss on it. It's got to look shiny. That's a big ask. I think I'd probably easier go for an updo. But I think the other thing to also think about with updos, people don't like their ears sometimes. It's really weird how many people don't like their ears. Um, but I think generally speaking, the way to kind of get an updo to work with most dresses, so that all necklines work really well with it, is to do a sort of parting where your natural parting is here, and then another parting across your head by your ears, and keep all the hair forward of your ears, um, don't do anything with it for a sip, get the back up. And then basically what I do is get all the back up into some nice like low bun or chignon or something, and then work out how I can not mess up the person's face too much. So you pull thread by thread back at the time, so that you're actually getting a very casually put up look, but you've got a very secure hairdo at the back. So yeah, so it's party at the front, business at the back, the other way round for my mullet.
Could smell it.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. But no, you
Endless advice.
yeah, have a backwards mullet. That really worked for me. But I think neckline is important. To answer Sharon's question is, yes, you need to think about the neckline of your dress. But I think what will have happened when we've chosen the neckline is I've got this theory, which I need to really really work on, that the best necklines are ones that work like a mirror image. So that why do some necklines look better? Why do square necklines look good on one girl, not on another? Why is a wider shoulder Bardo neck look good? Why does this, that, and the other look good? So I think by the time that we've got the neckline, we've got a pretty good frame for the face. So I think that I will have considered hair while we're doing this, and also bear in mind, if somebody wants a veil and they've got a bit of an updo, then a veil really softens an updo and it becomes hair effectively, so that it makes you feel less like drag. And I do agree, I mean, like, who apart from sort of Hailey Bieber is like hot enough to like have a completely slick back kind of like Croydon facelift kind of hairdo on their wedding day? It's pretty brutal. But then also I feel like twiddly bits around the face are not any more attractive sometimes on some people. They're just annoying. I'd rather see a person's face. But a lot of girls do use hair over their face as a comfort blanket and are very scared of having it away from their face. It's just fact.
I know I would be.
Yeah.
Got very square face.
You've got a beautiful bone structure.
Very square. It's very.
Is it square?
I couldn't have it slick. If I had it slicked back, yeah, it would just be like.
Yeah, you're right. I've
wow,
never
I look like
seen
my dad.
that.
I always call it my desperate Dan chin.
It's hard on ourselves. I actually look like my dad when I take my glasses off, which is actually why I like to keep my glasses on now. As I look like an 80-year-old man, basically. Well, what he did look like when he was alive. I know. Oh, anyway.
Oh,
yes.
Right.
I hope that helps.
So yes, that is helpful. And we have been talking about doing some content with Sharon, so that might be quite fun at some point to do some dresses and some hair advice together.
Yeah, I think we're trying to get a content day together so that we can talk through a few more tutorials, because we all know how what I thought would be the bridal equivalent of watching paint dry, i.e. putting different sleeves on a dress, is something of a viral hit for us. So I think that those kind of instructional things, which are quite practical with some takeaways, are very useful for people. So Sharon, we will be getting to that and doing some things
Definitely.
together. Yeah. And to try
other questions?
Yeah. No, I was only going to say try and reverse this no hairdo thing. People, you need hairdressers.
Yes, you do. So Jane Redmond wants to know when she can see you.
I know. I saw that. I was like, do you know what I thought after I saw that? I'm a terrible person. Let me just, for context, let me explain who Jane is. Jane is a previous bride of Miss Bush, and as was her sister and her sister-in-law. So literally like a hat trick of brides from the same family. All had amazing frocks. Her sister-in-law has actually, I think, still got pride of place, writing about her wedding on our homepage for our website.
Yes, she has. Kate, was it?
Yes, Kate, yeah. So
yep.
And Jane also has this company, a fantastic artistic company called Jane Redmond Handmade. She makes fantastic personalised baubles and like painted ceramics, and has a pop-up in Harrods.
In Harrods, is she?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's who she is. Link will be in the show notes to that. And but what I realised is I'm actually a terrible person because I spend my whole life talking to girls, working with women, being very female first, and I've always been really terrible and hands off with my friendships with women. I am weirdly I don't gas on the phone to friends. I don't know anyone's birthdays. I don't I don't think I'm ever the person that anyone calls in a crisis, unless it was a massive crisis. Do you know what I mean?
Apart from me.
Yeah, but,
I was
but
calling
maybe,
you in a crisis.
yes. Okay, but yeah, I guess. But then we've got then our entire relationship is on the phone, basically. It always has been, hasn't it? So, like, I think I'm actually like quite a bad friend. That
Do
was
you
my
think
thing.
that's because you spend all day in the shop talking to women all day, every day? Do you think that's why when you get home you don't want to talk?
There was definitely that on a Saturday. My social battery is gone, and I didn't even know the phrase social battery until recently. It's like it's not there. I think I've always struggled. So this is like, Jane's being like, this is just an excuse. I was like, yeah, you're right. It's probably is a bit of an excuse, but also, So I think it is. Yes, Jane, we should get together, because actually Jane is one of the most hysterically funny people with the best stories ever, and no night out ends with her without there being a major a major story. So I think that's but honestly, Marshy's so good. He like will keep tabs on his friends. He will almost like, well, like I haven't phoned them, or I ought to arrange a dinner or something like that. And like I've got my supper club mates who are like my mum's friends from like school. Like everyone makes friends through their kids, don't they? I mean, if they didn't arrange things, I don't know that I would ever see them. It's bad. It's not like I don't like them. I really love them. They're really funny and interesting. It's just a very weird, detached thing that I have with friends. It's almost like a sort of, if you don't see them, they don't exist anymore, which I am led to believe is something of an ADHD
I was
symptom.
going to say that's an ADHD trait. Yeah, if something's not in front of you, it does not exist.
Yeah. So, there is a growing mounting of evidence that I may be the mothership of the ADHDers in my family, but yeah, so it's like, it's bad. It's not that I don't like people, and it's not like I'm not doing it. It just doesn't occur to me at all. So bad. But it makes you sound like a sort of sociopath, psychopath, whatever. I'm not a very nice person anyway. But then when I saw that, I was like, yeah, that'd be great. I want to do that. Yeah.
Wow. I think that can be your New Year's resolution for 2025, is to see your friends more.
Yeah, I know, right?
And the thing is, you're always doing something. You're always out and about doing things. So just, invite people to go with you.
My best mate, though. Do you know what I mean? It's like...
Oh, that's so sweet, though.
It is quite sweet, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, we're at 48 minutes. So I'm just going to read out 2 more questions, and we're not going to answer them. You can answer them next week. So that's kind of going to be a bit of a teaser for next week, because we haven't got time to answer them today. So... what are the trends for 2025 brides, and can you advise whether to incorporate the trends or stay timeless? And best and worst appointments you've ever had, and why?
Oh my God, I've got so much.
You can't answer it now.
We all know the worst appointment I've ever done. It's literally legendary. Okay, go. What else with the question? No, okay. I can't. And I will literally like...
No,
so the
don't
trends,
say it.
The trends could be a whole podcast, so yeah. I can't.
So these could be next week. And then finally, when is the first guest? So we could maybe use that as an invitation for anybody listening. Would you like to be a guest?
We've got a bride. I think I've got one current bride and one previous bride that wants to be a guest. So I think Antonia has like offered to be a guest, and. There is. Was it
Hannah? The other one? What's her name? Hannah. I'm really bad at remembering names. Nina. Yes.
Nina. I think it's Nina. Yeah.
Yes. And then we did talk about maybe having Marion from Jesus Perez as a guest as well.
Yes. And also, the thing is, I doubt whether very much that I could get, say, Suzanne as a guest, but I could probably ask her some questions and relay. She's fairly shy. She's just brought me tea. See? Well, who needs anyone else?
He's lovely. That's why he's your best friend. He makes good tea. But also Wojtek has said he's quite interested in coming in as a guest to talk about how to get the most from your photographer, how to pose, how to feel comfortable, things like that. So that might be fun as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe we should. I think that we should probably like maybe set aside a day. I don't know if like that seems a bit much, but and then do a whole bunch of different interviews or something. So I guess it would be really nice. I think like Marion obviously would be very good because that's, that she's an agent. She works very closely with Jesus Perro. Like, again, I'm not sure that anyone in Jesus Perro's English is good enough to be a podcast guest, and our Spanish is non-existent. So again, it might be something where if we'd got specific questions that people wanted to put to like our Spanish designers, or like the Romanian Mara from Romania. Actually, Mara's English was excellent, so she could very easily, I mean, she spent 4 years living in London, so she could easily be a guest. But I guess it's the other thing that I was thinking, which sounds a bit weird because it was sort of giving a platform to my competitors, but whether or not it'd be interesting to have a sort of almost in the round conversation with other bridal retailers, because actually, like, they're a fascinating bunch and they've got some really interesting stories to tell, and there is a bit of an opportunity to have a consensus of thought there that might be quite interesting as well. I don't know. And I also do realise that we've got quite a lot of trade people listening to this podcast, as well as actual brides to be, and then random family members and people that we know. So it's just where we go on that, and maybe like flagging up certain things and saying this is probably more of interest if you're in the trade.
Yeah, if we do them as like a one-off episode each time and say, this is what this is who it's for, and then you're kind of not wasting your time listening to something that you're not going to be interested in. But Spotify have got a feature where you can actually do a poll. I didn't know this. I've never actually voted on one myself, but I'm going to do a poll on this episode to say, what kind of guests would you like to listen to? So if you are listening on Spotify, you can vote on this episode.
Also, can I just say, I'm really annoyed that the Apple star rating thing doesn't work very well. So I would just like to appeal to anybody that's watching this on or listening to this on Apple Podcast. For some reason, getting a 5-star review on there is like really hard. And Leah Googled it, and apparently it's glitchy. So if anybody wants to give us a nice review and type something and try and give us a 5-star review on Apple platform, that would be really helpful.
That would be lovely. Somebody gave us a 2. We had 1 2-star rating, and we suspect that might be somebody that doesn't like us.
It's fair enough, but I actually think at least when you get like a complete slamming on a Google review, they usually look quite unhinged, those people. Quite often the Google review things are either not true or completely weird.
Yes.
But you say why you've got a 1-star review, because somebody's also given you an absolute kicking as well at the same time. So at least you can have some context for this. But a 2-star review without a 2-star text to go with it would be like, you're amateur. Yeah. And it went quite early. It's like, we're just learning how to do it. So probably was a bit crap actually. Bear with us. We'll try and get better.
At least you can work with it then, can't you? At least you can have the actual feedback.
Or you can work with it, or you can dismiss it. Do you know what I mean? Or you can take it on board. In fact, I actually have to say that even all of the horrible Google reviews that we've ever had, which is not many, I mean, the better ones far outweigh the bad ones. But you do tend to learn something from the bad ones, like really specifically trying hard not to get the wrong bride in your shop. A square peg round hole, it just doesn't work. People can feel, even though you haven't deliberately tried to feel it, the mates feel really uncomfortable if they're in the wrong place, if they realise that this place is too expensive, too private, too overwhelming, too intimidating. I think that I think that would be sometimes when I've read a poor review, then you just think, well, did we intimidate you? And quite often I'm mentioned. One of the poor reviews that I had said that I shouted at Corinne in an appointment. It's like, I don't really think that Corinne would have stayed working with us for 20 years if I shouted at her at all in any appointments ever. And, and I can also look back and see when that person was in and see what I was doing. It's like, and also I was in an appointment with another client myself. So this didn't happen. But somehow, somewhere, that person was made to feel weird. And I don't know why. So we've taken that as a cue to really try and explain what it exactly is that we do, so that we don't have people coming in and finding that they've spent money on an appointment that they really don't value. So Reviews,
Yeah.
people, star reviews, big or small. I'd rather you gave us 5 stars and said we were funny.
Yes, give us one. I'm like, this is
Yeah.
rubbish.
Or if you think we're rubbish and you think there's something else you could do, perhaps an email first would be good before a public vlogging.
Right. I think we're going to get a 1-star review now because this is too long.
All right.
We're at 55 minutes.
Okay, go. But let's see you next week then.
Yes. See you next week.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
You'd like to know, wouldn't you? You'd like to know, wouldn't you?